The radiation warnings flickered intermittently across the reinforced viewports of Shipyard Omega, a massive construct carved into the frozen methane heart of Titan. Pale orange light from Saturn's distant rings cast long shadows across rows of half-assembled battleship frames, each one a testament to humanity's last, desperate hope. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood motionless, her prosthetic left arm, a relic from the Resource Wars, reflecting the holographic schematics that danced around her. She had seen humanity's descent from a once promising civilization to a scattered, desperate species. Climate collapse, global conflicts, and the brutal first contact with extraterrestrial civilizations had reduced Earth's population to barely 2 billion, most of them concentrated in a handful of heavily fortified arcologies. "Systems check," she barked, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of quantum fabricators. Dr. Marcus Chen, lead quantum systems engineer, looked up from his neural interface. His eyes, enhanced with biosynthetic implants, scanned multiple data streams simultaneously. Quantum adaptive matrix is at 93.7% stability. We're pushing boundaries that the Galactic Confederation would call impossible. The Galactic Confederation. Belena's lip curled with barely contained contempt. Those bureaucratic overlords who had categorized humanity as a developing species, a polite term for beings so technologically primitive they were barely worth acknowledging. They had watched as humanity fought for survival, offering nothing but diplomatic platitudes and condescending reports. But survival was what humans did best. The Stellar Hammer Project was more than just a battleship. It was a middle finger to every alien civilization that had ever looked down on humanity. Each component represented decades of stolen, reverse-engineered, and radically reimagined technology. The ship's quantum adaptive hull could literally reshape its molecular structure in microseconds, a concept that would make most galactic engineers laugh, if they weren't busy being terrified. "Structural integrity at maximum theoretical limit," reported Lieutenant Aisha Okonkwo from her station. Her fingers danced across holographic controls, each movement precise and calculated. "Initial stress tests show the adaptive matrix can withstand energy outputs that would vaporize conventional matter." Rodriguez knew the stakes. Earth's remaining colonies were vulnerable. The Resource Wars had scattered humanity across the solar system, creating isolated pockets of survival. Mars, the Jovian moon bases, the deep space mining colonies, each was a potential target for the next alien incursion. Dr. Chen walked over, bringing up a holographic representation of their primary adversary. The Zarkov Imperium loomed large, a multi-species collective that had been systematically conquering and assimilating civilizations for millennia. Their technology was centuries ahead of what humanity had managed to cobble together. "They don't know what's coming," Chen said, a rare smile crossing his typically stoic face. The Stellar Hammer wasn't just a weapon. It was a message, a declaration that humanity would no longer be a footnote in galactic history. Every circuit, every quantum processor, every millimeter of adaptive hull represented generations of human determination. Rodriguez placed her hand on the holographic representation of the battleship. It pulsed beneath her touch, almost alive. "We're going to make them remember our name," she whispered. Outside the shipyard's reinforced walls, Saturn's rings continued their silent, ancient dance. Humanity's last and greatest hope was taking shape, one quantum particle at a time. The void between the Centauri colonies trembled with anticipation. Zarkov Fleet Commander Vexnar adjusted the bioneural implants that connected him directly to the collective consciousness of the invasion force. 43 capital ships stretched across the starscape, each vessel a living testament to millennia of technological superiation. Preliminary scans of human defenses complete, chirped the fleet's primary computational matrix. The tone was almost dismissive, a reflection of centuries of systematic galactic conquest. Humanity was but another primitive species, another footnote in the grand tapestry of imperial expansion. What the Zarkov didn't know was that they were sailing into a perfect storm of human innovation and desperation. Aboard the Stellar Hammer, Admiral Elena Rodriguez sat in a command chair that was more neural interface than traditional seat. Her consciousness merged with the ship's quantum AI, creating a symbiotic relationship that defied every known principle of spacefaring technology. Around her, the bridge crew moved with a precision that bordered on prescience. Incoming fleet detected, Lieutenant Okonkwo announced. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. Zarkoth Invasion Force, 43 capital ships, estimated time to contact, 17 minutes. Dr. Marcus Chen's fingers danced across a holographic interface. Quantum adaptive matrix is primed. The bastards won't know what hit them. The invasion force approached with the confidence of predators who had conquered hundreds of civilizations. Their biomechanical ships pulsed with energy weapons capable of turning entire planetary surfaces into molten glass. Computational projections showed a 99.7% probability of total human subjugation. But mathematics, the Zarkoth would learn, meant nothing in the face of human ingenuity. Vexinar's neural link suddenly spiked with an impossible reading. A single human vessel had just materialized, not dropped out of faster-than-light travel, not approached from a known vector, simply appeared, as if conjured from the fabric of space itself. The stellar hammer was a nightmare made real. Its hull shimmered with impossible geometries, quantum adaptive surfaces shifting and changing faster than biological eyes could track. Where traditional battleships were rigid and predictable, this vessel moved like liquid mercury, its very molecular structure rewriting itself with each passing microsecond. Tactical analysis. Vexinar demanded of the ship's computational core. Silence. Then panic. The first Zarkoth capital ship disappeared not in a traditional explosion, but in a cascade of molecular disassembly. One moment it existed, the next it was nothing more than a rapidly expanding cloud of superheated particles. The stellar hammer hadn't just destroyed the ship, it had unmade it. Impossible, Vexinar whispered. 17 minutes. By the time those 17 minutes concluded, 43 of the most advanced capital ships in the Zarkoth fleet were nothing more than rapidly cooling debris. The stellar hammer hadn't taken a single point of damage. It hadn't even been touched. Rodriguez's laugh was cold, triumphant. First contact, she said softly to her crew, is a bitch. The universe watched. The galaxy held its breath. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of warfare, and nobody, absolutely nobody, saw it coming. Dr. Chen looked at the tactical display, a rare smile crossing his face. I believe, he said, we've made our point. The origins of the stellar hammer's technology traced back to humanity's darkest moment, the resource wars that nearly extinguished civilization. While other species saw humanity's struggles as a sign of weakness, those conflicts had forged something far more dangerous, an unprecedented capacity for adaptive innovation. Dr. Marcus Chen stood before a holographic archive, reviewing the project's impossible genesis. The quantum adaptive technology wasn't a single breakthrough, but a constellation of desperate solutions developed in the most hostile environments imaginable. The core breakthrough came from an unexpected combination of disciplines. Deep-sea mining colonies had developed molecular restructuring techniques to survive extreme pressures. Martian terraforming projects had pushed the boundaries of adaptive materials. Quantum computing researchers from the last remaining Japanese research enclaves had developed neural quantum interfaces that blurred the line between artificial and biological intelligence. What emerged was something entirely new. The stellar hammer's eye wasn't just a computer, it was a living consciousness that processed combat scenarios with a complexity that made traditional artificial intelligence look like children's toys. Each line of code was a battlefield, each algorithm a strategic masterpiece. Lieutenant Aisha Okonkwo understood this better than anyone. Her own body was a testament to human adaptability. Cybernetic implants that seamlessly integrated with biological systems, allowing her to interface directly with the ship's quantum matrix. Where alien species saw technological augmentation as a crude enhancement, humans had turned it into an art form of biological-technological symbiosis. The key, Chen often explained to bewildered alien researchers who would later study the technology, is that we don't see technology as separate from ourselves. It's an extension of human potential. The quantum adaptive hull was a perfect example. Traditional starship design followed rigid principles: create the strongest possible armor, develop the most powerful weapons. The stellar hammer rewrote those rules entirely. Its hull could literally reshape its molecular structure in microseconds, transforming from a solid to a semi-liquid state, absorbing and redirecting energy in ways that defied conventional physics. During early tests, the ship had survived conditions that would have obliterated any known vessel: extreme radiation, gravitational stress, direct energy weapon impacts. None could penetrate its adaptive defenses. The hull wasn't just armor. It was a living, thinking membrane that anticipated and countered threats before they could even manifest. Admiral Rodriguez understood the true breakthrough wasn't just technological, it was philosophical. Humanity had transformed warfare from a mathematical equation to an art form of adaptive destruction. Where alien tacticians saw conflict as a series of predetermined outcomes, humans saw it as a dynamic, ever-changing canvas of possibility. The ship's AI, nicknamed Phoenix by its creators, could process combat scenarios faster than biological minds could perceive threat vectors. It didn't just react. It anticipated, predicted, and manipulated battlefield conditions with a level of sophistication that was almost sentient. During one classified test, Phoenix had successfully predicted and countered a simulated attack from multiple vectors, using a strategy so complex that the lead Galactic Confederation analysts refused to believe the data. It wasn't just about processing speed. It was about understanding the fundamental nature of conflict itself. We're not just building a weapon, Chen would tell his team. We're creating a new form of intelligence, a bridge between biological creativity and technological precision. The stellar hammer represented humanity's greatest achievement, not just a technological marvel, but a fundamental reimagining of what was possible. It was a middle finger to every civilization that had ever underestimated human potential. As Saturn's rings cast their pale light over the Titan shipyards, humanity's greatest weapon continued to evolve, one quantum particle at a time. The transmission came in fragments, encrypted through layers of quantum-scrambled channels that would make even the most sophisticated Zarkov communication interceptors go blind. On a small monitoring station deep within the Sol system, Lieutenant Kira Nomura caught the first whispers of a galaxy about to ignite. "Repeat transmission," she muttered, her augmented eyes flickering with holographic data streams. The message was from the Corvi, a species that had been under Zarkov occupation for over 3 centuries. Their homeworld was a prismatic nightmare of industrial subjugation, a planet stripped of resources and hope. Yet here was something different. A coded message that spoke of resistance, of a single human battleship that had done the impossible. Admiral Rodriguez reviewed the incoming intelligence with a Predator's calculation. Each transmission was a puzzle piece, each encrypted fragment a potential weapon. The Zarkov Imperium had ruled through a simple principle: divide and conquer. They systematically broke the spirit of conquered civilizations, turning potential rebels into compliant workers. But humanity had just changed the equation. Dr. Marcus Chen decoded the first full transmission. The Corvée weren't alone. Hidden resistance cells from 17 different star systems were reaching out, their messages a mixture of desperation and newfound hope. The Stellar Hammer's victory wasn't just a military achievement. It was a psychological neutron bomb that had shattered the illusion of Zarkov invincibility. "They've been waiting," Chen explained to Rodriguez, holographic star charts dancing around them. Waiting for someone to prove that resistance wasn't futile. The communication network expanded rapidly. The Ralshi mining collectives, who had been forced to extract rare minerals for the Imperium. The Nexus tribes, nomadic spacefarers who had been systematically hunted and controlled. The Silicon Collective, an artificial intelligence civilization that had been brutally suppressed. Each transmission told a similar story: years of oppression, decades of silent suffering, Generations of hope crushed beneath the Zarkov's technological superiority. Until now, Rodriguez understood something profound. This wasn't just about military conquest. This was about reigniting the fundamental spark of resistance that the Zarkov had tried to extinguish across multiple civilizations. "We're not liberators," she told her command crew. "We're the match that's going to burn down their entire system." The intelligence they received was more than just tactical information. It was a roadmap of Zarkov vulnerabilities, detailed schematics of industrial complexes, weak points in communication networks, strategic locations of key infrastructure. Each piece of information was a potential weapon, a precision strike against the heart of Imperial control. Lieutenant Okonkwo began mapping the rebellion's potential. Holographic displays showed how a coordinated effort could systematically dismantle the Zarkov's control structures. It wasn't about overwhelming force. It was about precise, strategic disruption. "They've been waiting for a sign," Chen repeated. "And we just gave them more than a sign. We gave them a blueprint for revolution." The first coordinated rebel action came 3 weeks after the Stellar Hammer's initial victory. A Corvée resistance cell seized control of a critical fuel refinery, using intelligence provided by human strategists. Then another, and another. The Zarkov Imperium watched in growing horror as their carefully constructed system of control began to unravel. One battleship had done what centuries of resistance had failed to accomplish. Humanity had not just entered the galactic stage. They had set it on fire. The star system of Kepler 782 burned. Not from traditional weapons, but from a ballet of destruction that defied every known principle of naval engagement. The Stellar Hammer moved like a phantom, its quantum-adaptive hull shifting through space, with a fluidity that made traditional warships look like children's toys. Admiral Elena Rodriguez watched the tactical display with a surgeon's precision. This wasn't just a military campaign. It was a systematic deconstruction of an entire Imperial infrastructure. The first wave of Zarkov defense platforms never saw it coming. One moment they existed, matrix shields humming with centuries of technological superiority. The next, they were nothing more than expanding clouds of superheated plasma. The Stellar Hammer didn't just destroy. It rewrote the very mathematics of combat. "Targeting confirmed," Lieutenant Aisha Okonkwo reported. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. "Rebel forces are in position to exploit the strategic gaps." What made the human campaign truly terrifying was its comprehensive nature. Where other species saw war as a series of battles, humans saw it as a complex, dynamic problem to be solved. Each engagement was a learning opportunity, each destroyed installation a data point in a larger strategic algorithm. Dr. Marcus Chen monitored the quantum adaptive matrix, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that would have driven most alien technicians mad. The ship's AI, nicknamed Phoenix, was learning faster than any computational system in known space. It didn't just process combat scenarios. It anticipated them, manipulated them, turned them into intricate strategic puzzles. The Corvée rebel fleet moved in synchronization with the Stellar Hammer, their smaller ships exploiting the vulnerabilities created by each quantum adaptive strike. What had once been a scattered resistance was now a precision instrument of galactic liberation. "Analyzing Zarkov communication networks," Chen muttered. "They're still operating on predictive models that haven't changed in 3 centuries. It was their fatal mistake. Humanity had learned the hard way that survival meant constant adaptation. The resource wars on Earth, the brutal colonization of the solar system, the fight against environmental collapse. Each challenge had been a crucible of innovation. The Zarkov had stagnated in their technological superiority. Humans had been forced to reinvent themselves with each passing generation. The campaign moved like a wave of calculated destruction. 3 star systems fell in the first month, then 5, then 10. But it wasn't about raw numbers. It was about systematic dismantling of Imperial infrastructure. Communication networks collapsed. Defense systems turned against themselves. Entire planetary control mechanisms were rewritten in milliseconds by the Stellar Hammer's quantum infiltration protocols. Rodriguez understood something profound. This wasn't just a military campaign. This was a comprehensive reimagining of galactic power structures. "They thought we were primitive," she said to her command crew. "They never understood that necessity is the most powerful weapon in the universe." The rebel communications intercepted by the Stellar Hammer told a story of growing hope. Species that had been conquered, suppressed, and forgotten were rising. The Zarkov Imperium, once considered an immovable force of galactic domination, was crumbling. Phoenix, the ship's AI, calculated potential outcomes with a complexity that bordered on sentience. Each battle was a learning experience, each engagement a new data point in an ever-evolving strategy. As the campaign continued, something became abundantly clear. Humanity wasn't just fighting a war. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of galactic engagement. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, watching a species they had once considered irrelevant remake the universe in their image. The Zarkov Prime systems were a nightmare of technological perfection. 17 interconnected worlds, each a fortress of computational might, protected by defense systems that had repelled invasion attempts for over a millennium. Massive energy shields encompassed entire planetary systems, quantum-locked communication networks that could predict and neutralize threats before they could even be conceived. At the center of this impenetrable fortress sat the Grand Convergence, the central consciousness that controlled the entire Zarkov Imperium. Billions of neural networks intertwined, a living computational matrix that had systematically crushed hundreds of civilizations. They never saw the human strategy coming. Admiral Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic representation of the prime systems, her cybernetic neural interface burning with calculated intensity. The Stellar Hammer wasn't approaching this like a traditional military campaign. This was surgical dismemberment. "Phoenix," she whispered to the ship's AI, "show me the vulnerabilities." The quantum adaptive AI began to paint a picture that would have been impossible for any other intelligence to comprehend. It wasn't about finding a single weak point. It was about understanding the entire system as a living, breathing organism, and then systematically destroying its ability to function. Dr. Marcus Chen worked furiously, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to pulse with living energy. "The communication networks are their true weakness," he reported. "Every system is so interconnected that a precision strike can cause cascading failures." The first phase of the attack was almost invisible. Microscopic quantum infiltrators, smaller than individual atoms, began worming their way through the Zarkov's supposedly impenetrable defense systems. They didn't attack. They listened. They learned. They understood. Lieutenant Aisha Okonkwo monitored the infiltration, her augmented eyes tracking data streams that would have driven a normal human mind into madness. "We're not just breaking their defenses," she said. "We're rewriting their entire operational logic." The Zarkov first realized something was wrong when minor communication nodes began to fail. Not dramatically. Not with explosions or visible damage. Just subtle disconnections, a research station here, a communication relay there. Tiny, almost imperceptible breaks in their perfect system. But each break was a cancer. The Grand Convergence tried to adapt. Its massive computational matrix began to analyze the intrusion, to predict and counter. But it was fighting an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. Humanity's strategy was so fundamentally different that the Zarkov's predictive algorithms couldn't even comprehend the threat. Within hours, entire planetary defense networks began to collapse. Communication became impossible. The perfectly synchronized machine of the Zarkov Imperium started to break down, not with a dramatic explosion, but with a gradual, terrifying disintegration. "They built a system so perfect," Rodriguez murmured, "that its own perfection became its greatest weakness." The final blow wasn't a weapon. It was information. Every subjugated species the Zarkov had conquered over millennia suddenly found their communication channels open. Rebel groups, long suppressed, discovered they could suddenly speak to each other. The intricate web of control that had maintained the Imperium for generations simply unraveled. As the first Zarkoth Prime world went dark, something unprecedented happened. The entire system didn't explode. It didn't dramatically collapse. It simply stopped. Humanity had done what no civilization had ever managed. They had killed an empire without firing a single traditional weapon. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, watching a species they had once considered irrelevant rewrite the fundamental rules of galactic conflict. The conference chamber on the neutral diplomatic station of Nexus Prime was unlike any previous galactic summit. Representatives from over 200 species sat in a circular arrangement that deliberately broke traditional hierarchical seating protocols. At the center stood Admiral Elena Rodriguez, no longer just a military leader, but the primary architect of a fundamental galactic reconstruction. "We are not here to replace one empire with another," she began, her voice cutting through centuries of accumulated political tension. "We are here to reimagine how civilizations can coexist." The Interstellar Cooperative was more than a political framework. It was a radical reimagining of galactic interactions. Where the Zarkoth Imperium had ruled through oppression and control, humanity proposed a system built on mutual development, technological exchange, and collective security. Dr. Marcus Chen stood beside her, representing the technological vision of this new order. His presentation was less a traditional diplomatic briefing and more a masterclass in collaborative innovation. Species that had been enemies for millennia now found themselves looking at potential instead of conflict. The Corvée delegation, once a brutally suppressed species, now sat as equal partners. Their lead representative, Ambassador Krulnar, spoke with a passion that surprised even the most cynical observers. For the first time in 3 centuries, they declared, "We are not asking for survival. We are discussing advancement." The technological exchanges were unprecedented. The quantum adaptive technologies developed by humanity became a cornerstone of a new collaborative approach to innovation. Species that had been technologically isolated now found themselves part of a vast, interconnected network of scientific development. Lieutenant Aisha Okonkwo managed the initial implementation protocols. Where traditional diplomatic efforts would have taken decades, her team used advanced computational models to create frameworks of cooperation that took into account the unique biological, technological, and cultural needs of each participating species. It wasn't just about sharing technology. It was about creating a fundamentally new approach to civilization. The economic models were equally revolutionary. Traditional galactic trade had been built on extraction and control. The Interstellar Cooperative proposed a system of shared resources, collaborative research, and mutual protection. Species that had once been competitors now found themselves working towards collective goals. Environmental restoration became a primary focus. Hundreds of worlds, devastated by centuries of imperial exploitation, now became collaborative restoration projects. The same adaptive technologies that had powered the stellar hammer were now being used to heal ecosystems, to terraform damaged planets, to create sustainable futures. "We're not just rebuilding," Rodriguez explained in a pivotal address. "We're reimagining what's possible." The resistance groups that had fought alongside humanity were given prominent roles in the new governance structures. No longer were they seen as rebels, but as crucial architects of a new galactic vision. The Silicon Collective, the Nexus Tribes, the scattered resistance movements, all found themselves at the table, not as supplicants, but as equal partners. Phoenix, the quantum AI that had been crucial to the campaign, was itself a revolutionary concept. Instead of being a weapon, it became a collaborative intelligence, helping to mediate conflicts, predict potential areas of cooperation, and assist in complex problem-solving across multiple species. As the first year of the Interstellar Cooperative came to a close, something unprecedented happened. Species that had been enemies for millennia began to see each other as potential collaborators. Scientific exchanges increased exponentially. Technological development accelerated at a rate that defied previous galactic models. Humanity had done more than win a war. They had transformed the very concept of galactic civilization. The stars themselves seemed to breathe with new possibility. 10 years had passed since the fall of the Zarkoth Imperium. The universe looked nothing like it had before humanity's extraordinary intervention. On the restored homeworld of the Corvi, a massive memorial stood as a testament to the galactic transformation. Carved from adaptive quantum-reactive materials, the monument shifted and changed, telling the story of resistance and renewal. At its center, a holographic representation of the stellar hammer stood as a symbol of hope, not as a weapon, but as a beacon of possibility. Admiral Elena Rodriguez had long since stepped away from direct military leadership. Now she guided the next generation of interstellar diplomats and innovators. The Interstellar Cooperative had become more than a political framework. It was a living, breathing approach to civilization that challenged every previous concept of galactic interaction. Dr. Marcus Chen's research institutes had become the nexus of collaborative scientific development. Species that had once been bitter enemies now worked side by side, their unique biological and technological perspectives creating breakthroughs that would have been impossible under the old imperial system. Innovation is born from diversity, Chen would tell his students, not just of species, but of thought. The quantum adaptive technologies that had first emerged from humanity's desperate survival efforts had transformed nearly every aspect of galactic civilization. Planetary restoration projects used adaptive technologies to heal worlds that had been stripped bare by centuries of imperial exploitation. Medical research crossed species boundaries, creating treatment protocols that saved billions of lives across multiple star systems. Lieutenant Aisha Okonkwo now led the cooperative's strategic collaboration network. Her work focused on preemptive problem-solving, using the predictive capabilities first developed by Phoenix, the quantum AI that had been crucial to humanity's victory, to address potential conflicts before they could emerge. Phoenix itself had evolved. No longer just a military intelligence, it had become a collaborative computational network that assisted in everything from ecological restoration to complex diplomatic negotiations. It was a living testament to humanity's approach. Adaptive, collaborative, always seeking potential rather than conflict. The educational systems across the cooperative told a new story. Where once galactic history had been a narrative of conquest and subjugation, now it celebrated collaboration and mutual development. Young beings from hundreds of species learned about the moment humanity had fundamentally changed the galactic paradigm. Most importantly, the concept of civilization had been reimagined. The Zarkoth had seen the galaxy as a system to be controlled. Humanity saw it as a complex, interconnected ecosystem of potential. Each species was no longer viewed as a resource to be exploited, but as a unique perspective waiting to contribute to a larger understanding. Scientific exchanges became the new form of cultural diplomacy. The adaptive technologies that had once been weapons were now used to solve fundamental challenges: climate restoration, interstellar communication, medical breakthroughs. All became collaborative efforts that transcended species boundaries. On Earth, the shipyards where the stellar hammer had been constructed were now museums and research centers. The place where humanity had been pushed to the brink of extinction was now a symbol of renewal and potential. Rodriguez often reflected on the journey. What had begun as a desperate attempt to survive had transformed into something far greater. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited it to reimagine itself. As the adaptive memorial on the Corvi homeworld continued to shift and change, telling its story of resistance and hope, one message remained constant: potential is limited only by imagination. The stars continued their ancient dance, witnessing a universe forever changed by a species that had refused to be defined by its limitations.